Esche, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jahu Jefkidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabu Hedjidowedski. Welcome to our program on this first day of spring. We're finally seeing it, and better yet, it's a wild onion season, so we hope that you've been out enjoying some of the dafambachi and supporting some of those folks who put it on. I know I did and wish I had another plate right now. But let's get on with it. A couple things we'll be sharing with you today. We have the folks from the University of Tulsa come down to talk about an update on their pain study. Now, maybe a few of you out there listening had a chance to participate and find out what the results were and what they're going to be doing with it and what the next step is. So we'll chat with those folks. In the second segment of our program, it's the Jason Show. Our good friend Jason Salzman will have some news to share with us and chat about what he's been up to. But first of all, let's talk with Joanne Shadley and Jamie Rudy. Welcome back, folks. This ought to be kind of an old routine for you by now.
Thanks, Gary, for having us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We talked to you last when you were recruiting and conducting the study on pain among Native Americans, how much we could take, I guess, and what's the process. And now we've got some idea of what some of those results were and what you're learning and where you'll be taking that. So who wants to start there? Let's get an idea of what it is.
Absolutely. So you may remember we came on the show several years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, when we were just getting our first study up and running. And that study, the Oklahoma Study of Native American Pain Risk, we call it OK-SNAP, was really designed to try to understand what some of the risk factors are for Native Americans that might ultimately lead them to go on to develop chronic pain. So that study, we were recruiting healthy, pain-free individuals and brought them into the lab, and we were doing a couple of days of testing to try to measure the way the body responds to pain, as well as a lot of other psychosocial factors that might contribute. And one of the things that sort of came out of that study that was really interesting to us was that the number of diabetes risk factors that a person has makes it look as though that might put them at risk. So, maybe not surprisingly. So things like, do you have a family history of diabetes? Do you live a sedentary lifestyle? Do you have a family history of cardiovascular disease? Are you overweight? Things like that. So the number of risk factors that you have in a sort of cumulative score looks like it really might put you at risk. And so we measured a bunch of different things, including the way the nervous system functions and the way the brain talks to the spinal cord to try to figure out, well, what might be going on with those folks who are at high risk. And what it suggests is that the folks with the highest risk are looking like they experience more pain during pain testing, and the body's not working the way it should to really regulate that pain signal. And so these things might ultimately put folks at risk for those who have high risk of diabetes. So now we are kind of getting geared up for our second study to kind of follow this line of work up to see whether or not we can replicate the findings. And in addition, we're going to be recruiting folks with diabetes so that we can compare what pain processing looks like in those without diabetes to those with diabetes to see if the risks are indeed there, and to try to understand what the mechanisms are so that we might ultimately stop that transition to pain.
We were listening to what you said, and a question popped up then. A lot of the risk factors point to the, quote, sedentary lifestyle, sitting on the couch watching the tube all day or playing with your phone or whatever else. Do you have any idea of how much of a factor that is? I mean, is it like way up here where the other ones are down here? Like, how does that work in?
That's a really good question, and I think certainly leading a sedentary lifestyle, not getting regular exercise on most days, for at least I think 30 minutes or more, is a big one. But there wasn't any one particular risk factor that sort of stood out as being worse than others. Now, and that's why there's sort of a cumulative risk. So as you get older, you get a higher risk of diabetes. As you lead a sedentary lifestyle, higher risk of diabetes, family history of diabetes more. And so what we were seeing is as you got to have about 3 or more of those risk factors, those were the people who we were seeing show the types of deficits in the pain system that might put them at risk. Now, I don't want to sort of underscore the importance of regular exercise, because even though not getting regular exercise was one of the many risk factors we were looking at, we do know that getting regular exercise can offset some of the other types of bad things that can happen. We're specifically looking at pain, and so you need to get regular exercise to kind of stop all the other nasty metabolic things that can happen, like cardiovascular disease. So,
yeah. Now, Joanna, you had something on your mind there you wanted to share?
No, I think that one of the things that Jamie mentioned is that it was more than one risk factor, more than 2 risk factors that we definitely demonstrated showed more risk for chronic pain as more risk factors for diabetes. And the other interesting part is that in our Oklahoma study for Native American pain risk, study number 1, more Native Americans were in the population that had more than 3 risk factors.
Oh, boy.
So, which, in general, we are more at risk for type 2 diabetes. And so we weren't surprised by that, but these were healthy individuals, and so very concerning.
Do either of you have any, let's call it conjecture on why these risk factors are happening? I mean, is there one way to describe a situation that might apply to a lot? I don't know, can you point to somebody or not somebody, but their lifestyle and like what they might be doing to contribute to these things?
well, some of them are certainly behavioral, right?
Okay.
When we're talking about the diabetes risk factors,
yeah.
I mean, obviously we sort of choose not to engage in regular exercise. Some of us are too busy. I mean, that's a behavioral thing that we can exert control over. Whether or not you have a family history of diabetes, obviously that's not something you control. You either have parents or siblings with diabetes or you don't. So there are some things that, excuse me, that are changeable, are something that's under your control that can be alleviated. Diet also being one of those. But there are obviously some things that might just be predispositions, the genetics that you have from your parents and maybe their cardiovascular systems that they pass down to you that might put you at risk for diabetes that you can't control, but the big ones, diet and exercise, are things that you can control. And as Americans, we all sort of struggle with how do we live a better and healthy lifestyle and fit that into our already busy days. But certainly not doing the things we're supposed to in terms of eating a good diet and getting regular exercise can put us all at risk.
Okay, well, let's focus. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think one of the things that is most interesting is that, again, we were looking at healthy individuals. And so it really leads us to think, what can we do with these healthy individuals earlier on before they move into a chronic pain state or developing type 2 diabetes that can kind of try and prevent that onset. And I think that's what was really surprising about some of our data, is that these individuals were reporting no diabetes, no chronic pain, and because we were excluding for a lot of non-healthy symptoms.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
And there is a pretty good literature out there suggesting that, when we talk about diabetes, what we're really talking about is how your body regulates glucose, blood sugar. And we know that this is not categorical in the sense is that you do it well or you don't do it well. It's a spectrum. Some people do it well, some people do it a little less well, and some people do it even a little less well and even a little less well. And so there's this, we call it normal glycemics. That's kind of people who are healthy in terms of being able to regulate their glucose. But then there's this intermediate category of pre-diabetes where you're not quite diabetic, but your body's not processing glucose the way it should. And then there is the category of diabetes. But it's a continuum. There's all types in between all of that. And so there's a fairly good literature out there suggesting that even those people who have prediabetes, which is kind of not clinically yet relevant levels of diabetes, but you're sort of on your way to moving towards diabetes, that even those people are starting to have changes in their nervous system that look like their toxic effects. So things like not being able to sense things, warmth or cool with your fingers, maybe not being able to sense touch as well as you would like to, even the nerves themselves starting to kind of prune and have fewer nerve endings in certain regions of the body. And that's well before you're starting to develop any symptoms of diabetes. And so if you think about it along a progression, that even folks who seem like they're healthy, who aren't having any symptoms of diabetes, if your body is not processing food and glucose the way it's supposed to, and then you still may be getting some toxic effects that are sort of pushing you ever so slowly towards not only diabetes, but also damaging the nerves that are responsible for pain that might ultimately put you at risk for chronic pain down the road. So that's really the piece that we're interested in. How can we identify those folks who are starting to show damage really early on, so that we can identify ways of intervening so that chronic pain isn't sort of the ultimate destiny for those folks. And that's really at the heart of what this study's about. How can we identify and understand the mechanisms so that we can reverse those toxic effects on the nerves?
Joanne, you sent me an informational email about the new work you're doing, and quoting from your messenger. The new study extends our recent project and will examine whether glucose dysregulation increases pain risk in Native Americans. Now, can you translate that for me?
Yeah, so in our first study, we looked at the risk factors. We were checking boxes and seeing who was reporting sedentary behaviors, a history of diabetes in their family, but we didn't look at A1C levels. So we weren't sure if these individuals didn't have type 2 diabetes. So in our new work, we're actually assessing that. And so we're recruiting for healthy individuals and individuals that have a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. So we're looking at medical records, and we're actually assessing A1C levels in the lab to be able to look at the differences and to see if individuals that are struggling more or have type 2 diabetes also have more risk factors for chronic pain.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, A1C levels that's how your doctor tells whether or not you have diabetes, by checking your blood glucose levels.
Right, that's where you stick
The
yourself.
finger prick, yeah.
And I've got a little meter that beeps so faintly that sometimes you can't hear the darn thing. Well, come on. The future of your material here now, what kind of goal are you looking for? What do you hope to achieve or find out or be able to share?
Yeah. Well, several different things. So there's multiple goals, like with all studies. So one, we're trying to understand the mechanisms that lead to chronic pain down the road. And right now, this is suggesting that diabetes and diabetes risk factors might be one of those pathways. So that's kind of part one. The sort of intermediate goal is we'd like to be able to really develop a much larger study so that we can look at not just the single mechanism, but all the possible mechanisms. Diabetes is such a complex disorder, and rarely is it the case where someone only has diabetes as their a health condition. So a lot of times it does come with cardiovascular disease or cardiovascular risk, other metabolic problems like obesity and high lipid levels, cholesterol levels. So it's rarely in isolation. It's usually together with a bunch of other things that we call kind of metabolic disorder, metabolic disease. So right now we're kind of focusing in on diabetes, but we don't know for sure whether it's the diabetes, the glucose dysregulation, that's kind of the key centerpiece of this, the mechanism leading to chronic pain, or whether it's some other comorbid metabolic problem that might be going on. So we're going to be hopefully gearing up. This initial second part of our study is to collect some additional data so that we can go after some additional federal monies to do a much bigger study so that we can look at a host of different metabolic symptoms and signals. One of the things that could be of real interest to us is immune function. So one of the things that happens as we start to get sicker, even though we don't have symptoms, is our body starts to promote an immune response so that it wants to attack things, right? Attack invaders to our bodies. Well, low levels of inflammation, although it is a natural response by the body to potential invaders, can actually cause problems. And so one of the things that we're also going to be kind of measuring with these little finger pricks and getting a little droplet of blood is how much of your immune response is kind of going on right at this very minute before we start testing you.
Now, I understand you're working with the Cherokee Nation, and they've got their blessing has been given. How about for the Mvskoke Creek Department of Health? Have you contacted or worked something out with them specifically?
So we have been approved through the ethical boards at the Cherokee Nation and also through Indian Health Service Oklahoma City area office. So we have not gone through the ethical board with Creek Nation IRB, but we have those three currently. So Cherokee Nation, Oklahoma City IHS area office, and the TU IRB.
Now, I have seen in last few weeks that the Indian Health Service has got this initiative nationwide to look at pain management, and we're talking opioids. And does that kind of thing bleed into your study? I mean, is there a connection, or will you be working with each other?
Yeah, so what we do know is that Native Americans that are very high risk for chronic pain. And so we are going to hopefully be at the Creek Nation conference that's coming up to let individuals know about the work that we're doing at TU. Ultimately, maybe not a direct result of this study, but we also would like to, at some point, do non-medication intervention specifically for Native Americans because of that high risk factor for chronic pain. And so that high risk factor for chronic pain, that high risk factor for type 2 diabetes that we see in Native Americans really kind of led us to bridging these two interesting kind of things that we're looking at in this current study.
Okay, what do you hope to determine with your study? What are the results or the outcome you're looking for? Or waiting to see, I guess.
There's a couple of different things that we really hope to get from it. One is to be able to develop an assessment to determine who are the folks that are at the highest risk for developing chronic pain. If you can identify those folks early on, you're at a much greater probability of reversing the possible toxic effects that might ultimately lead to chronic pain, so stopping that. And then the sort of second part of that is if we understand what the mechanisms are that have led to chronic pain, even for those individuals who have ultimately developed chronic pain, we may be able to target the mechanism that led to it so that we could reverse that effect. So ultimately we're trying to stave off all of the negative consequences of chronic pain, trying to stop it before it starts and reverse it once it has started. That's our kind of overarching goal.
How will you be dispersing this information? Will it just go to doctors and hospitals, or are you going to put out a pamphlet for the general public?
We'd like to do all of those things. So we have presented at the International Society of Indian Psychologists Conference for 2 years, and we plan to again present our information or some of the results from our study. Jamie's done a couple of talks looking at our data. We've done colloquiums at Oklahoma State University. We've done meetings at the full staff meeting for Indian Healthcare Resource Center of Tulsa. We've communicated and have an endocrinologist, Dr. Laura Chalmers, that is helping us and consulting with us, who works at OSU or OU Tulsa and also works in some of the Cherokee Nation clinics. But we'd like to do more dispersion of our work through the Indian Health Service clinics.
Okay. We're getting close to the time limit on this segment, but where would someone find you? How would they contact you for possible inclusion in the study, and what sort of things do you need from them?
So we are currently advertising in the Cherokee Phoenix. Our first advertisement just went out on March 15th, but Jamie Rudy is the PI on the project looking, and his lab is called Psychophysiology Laboratory for Effective Neuroscience. It's the PLAN lab.
That's a mouthful.
That's right. And our phone number is 918-631-2175. And so the first step would be to call in, and then one of the graduate students, who are the main runners of our study, would reach out to you, and we do a phone screener. And then we come in, or you would come into the laboratory if you meet qualifications based on that phone screener. And for your time, for the first day of in-lab screening, you can earn a $25 gift card. And then you come back for a day of testing that lasts around 3.5 to 5 hours, and you can be reimbursed for $100 for your time. We also have travel reimbursement, too, pending how far you're coming from.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad, yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything we really haven't touched on? I mean, this is kind of a brief interview today, but something else you'd care to share?
Only that, if any of your listeners have participated in our studies before, we want to thank you for helping us conduct this important work. We're really, doing our best to try to understand what's leading to chronic pain and the high prevalence within the Native American population, because we really want to address that issue, because as you pointed out, one of the negative consequences of chronic pain is opioid use and disuse, and that's also a serious problem within our Native American community. We're really wanting to help out in any way we can. So we thank those of you who've been there for us and came into our lab and participated in the past, and we hope you consider coming into our new study, where we're looking at both normal glycemics and type 2 diabetics. So please consider that.
That would give you a baseline already in place.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think I also would say that, Jamie and I are very interested in reaching out into the community. So if anybody's listening, where you think there might be a nice place for us to come and talk about the work we're doing, please feel free to give us a call, 918-631-2175. And if you just have any questions about what we're doing, please feel free to call. We're always available to talk about the great work that we think that we're doing. So please give us a call.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank Joanna Shudley and Jamie Rudy for coming in for a second visit with us here on Mvskoke Radio. We're going to keep our eye on this this little project
We
here.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and seeing other guys in pain is always fun, depending on who it is. But we'll be taking a short break, and we'll be back with more Mvskoke Radio here and talk to our good friend Jason Salzman. So stay with us.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Okay, good
Appreciate
job,
it.
folks. Come on, good work, good work.
Hello. How are you? Good. How are you? See you.
Here's a good paying day for you.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Let's see him in pain any day.
There's a story on that guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we are back here on Mvskoke Radio, and we've got our good colleague Jason Salzman joining us now. Jason, you've got some big news to be sharing here, kind of a blockbuster.
Right? Yeah, it's a big one. This is the, I guess, the go-home show, as you would call it, for me. This next week will be my last episode of Mvskoke Vision, Native News Today, Mvskoke Nation News Monthly, everything it's been called, for 650 plus episodes and 13 years of my life, and it's just time to do something different, and I'm excited, but also very nostalgic and sad. I mean, there's a lot of great memories at what once was Creek Nation Communications became Mvskoke Media. We tried this big new frontier. Let's rebrand. Let's become a media department. Let's differentiate ourselves away from just sort of a public relations kind of megaphone for the tribe, and instead be just a messenger of information to citizens, whether it be something that they feel is bad news, good news, happy news, sad news, whatever. So to look back on all those years and know this will be my last week doing the TV show, it's pretty surreal, actually. It's crazy to think that this will be the last one, because just so much of the life of this thing, and I don't mean to get too gravitas or anything like that, but just this thing really has been a story, and has taken on so many different faces and meanings and everything like that, that when you look back on the 13 years, you go, wow, it really was kind of this living, breathing thing that just got, out of control almost on me. And I never thought it'd be that long, or that I would do it that long, or that it would become what it did. But when people go, oh, that's that Indian show, it's like that's all I ever wanted. You know what I mean?
That guy.
Yeah. Oh, no, and I didn't want to be that guy. I just wanted people to say, oh man, that's our show. We had never really had that. We had talk shows, I think. Former Principal Chief Tiger had a talk show on Channel 6 inside Native America, but really that was just sort of a set at a set. And kind of have guests on, and they just basically like a radio show with it being televised. No, I'm just saying it's very different in the. What I mean that to say that when my show came along, it was packaged stories about different Native people out in life doing their thing, and you went and shot it, brought back the interview and sort of the B-roll and everything like that. So it was something so different and new that had ever been done before, rather than your just regular talk show host, and guest session. And so that was cool to me, to be able to say, let's do like the first one of that. In Oklahoma, and we did. There were so many people along the way that had, the really the shared foresight and I guess vision to be able to see what it could be, and instead of just chopping it off right at the bit. Like, we can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, there were people there in the beginning that were able to say, I'll let this kid do it. You know what I mean? Let's see what it does.
You mentioned a couple of things that were close to my heart. First of all, I've been in your position where you got this baby here that you've raised, that you've sweated over, busted your backside for, and you see this bud blossom, and then your own people have taken it to heart. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a position, for whatever reasons, we have to go. We have to do something else. Yeah. As you mentioned, a lot goes through your head and your heart when you're looking at the end of this project. It's been so close to you that has meant so much to your heart. I know I was feeling a bit tragic about it, having to leave it, and a little mad about it for having to leave it. But what was going through your mind when you made that decision?
I'm glad you say that, because the symmetry of you and I with those kind of things is kind of reason you were one of the first people I went and talked to whenever I was, had told everyone and everything like that. It just kind of had a minute to just kind of duck in your office and everything like that, and because I knew that, what I mean. I knew that about you, and a lot of similarities there, and to be able to just kind of, chat with you about it, kind of put me at ease about the decision and everything like that. So really, what was going through my head was that there's no, underlying reason. There's no animosity. There's no, I'm sick of this place and shaking my fist. There's none of that. I think really it's just sort of this inner, existential really feeling of I just gotta try something else, for now. I've taken it to where I can take it, you know what I mean, and now we'll kind of see, and it's neat to be, that's exciting to me too. I got a lot of good friends and people that I almost consider, as close as family, that are going to kind of take this thing up and continue to run with it. And I'm excited to see what comes out of there from then. But really, there was no thinking other than just, this is something that I've got to do to take care of myself on the inside, because I want to continue to grow, be creative, and everything like that. And I don't want to say it affected my work. I mean, last year we were the General Excellence. I mean, just this last year we were the General Excellence for Native News Today.
There's a significant plaquage on your wall.
Yeah, well, no, and I say that to go, I was feeling a little burnout, the last couple, 2 or 3 years, people go, oh, you woke up and you just want one of these. It's been a long time. It's got nothing to do with recent events or anything like that, or turnover or any kind of thing going on at the department. It's something that I've chewed on. It's been tough, and I've thought about it for more than 2 years. But it was just time, and things would come up, right? That I would go, oh, I can't leave now. We got some turmoil and some things going on that, I kind of got to, steady the ship a little bit and stay in the fight and help out, where we may have lost a person here and we got to, kind of double time it, or, there won't be somebody available here. We got to double time it, or, we're having to deal with things that, which nobody ever wants to do, which is, going to meetings and having to work things out legislatively. I mean, we don't want to get involved in that. We want to cover that. You know what I mean? We want to report what's happening legislatively. We don't want to be in the political football game, and we found ourselves there, which, whatever, that happens. But
you do get kicked around a bit in this business. Well, let me ask you this now. You've been, 13 years doing this show?
13 years.
Straight out of J school into that?
They're straight out of J school. Like 2 months after I left OU, I came to Creek Nation, and said, can we do a TV show? It was an exciting time for me, but also I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And the tribe, goodness, thumbs up, because at that time, I had been in Norman for 5 years and really just kind of cutting my teeth on every internship I could do. I did some time at a radio station there, running the Friday night high school football scoreboard show. So I would go in on my Friday nights at like 10:30 and run the show till like midnight. Nobody was listening. Yeah, it was just me on a board, figuring stuff out. And
everybody else is out partying.
Yeah, nobody's listening to G. Nobody's listening to me on the high school football show. But it was from that to working with Cox Communication remote trucks on different things with TV. And so when I came out, I was like, man, I'm going to try to do this all. Like, I'll shoot it, I'll edit it, I'll host it, whatever. And one-stop shop, can we do it? And we started going, and it was awesome because, at that time, it was either that or like the crush my soul, sit in a dark room at Channel 6 and pump out somebody else's stuff. Here's a shot sheet, edit exactly to this color by numbers directions you have here, and turn over your soul with it. There's no creativity, in that. So I kind of had to create my own niche, and that's exactly what we did.
Well, in the time you've been doing this show, you got to see some of the evolution of Native journalism.
Oh man!
I've been in it
like crazy.
Like since '72.
Right.
And I've seen my share of it, and to where we are today. But how would you describe what you saw? Like, my impression of the first Native TV coverage or documentaries or whatever was kind of a canned talking heads thing, like the previous guy did and called himself a journalist. But we saw it evolve into a period where everyone was doing the corned bean squash thing.
Yeah.
The Three Sisters thing. And then now they're beginning to go even further. It was poverty porn for such a long time. And then now we've got more issues being covered, but it's still sporadic. So how would you assess what you saw? Is there anything that stuck in your mind?
Yeah, the evolution has been pretty staggering. Just in my time, I can't imagine. Like you said, you in those early days, the Native American Press Association. I mean, for you to see from that time to now, and see, like you said, the subject matter changing. I mean, we almost stereotyped ourselves back in those early days. Even in my early days, it was let's do stories on issues like diabetes and alcoholism and suicide, and also stomp dances and powwows and basket making and stuff like that, which is all, yes, let's document it, absolutely. But then you started seeing stories of like, a woman's house burned down, and she was all by herself, and so the nation built her a new one, and that's a story. And then a gentleman is going through a crisis in life, so he decides to go on a fitness journey, and at the end of that fitness journey, he runs his first marathon, and we follow him on that journey, and he talks about being indigenous and taking his traditional ways, but also putting them into a really modern, healthy, fit lifestyle type of story. Or you look at the one we just did this past year with the Mission 22 Memorial coming to Creek Country, and one of our Creek citizens being one of the ambassadors of the Mission 22, which is about our veterans and things like that. So it was like I saw it happening, but it's like I almost didn't. Also, it changed without me noticing it because I was so in. I was so in. Like, I mean, every week producing a TV show, sometimes, heck, there is not time to smell the roses. I mean, there's not even time to get up out of your sleepwalk. I mean, sometimes you're on absolute autopilot.
Right, it rules your life.
You know how
Absolutely
it is.
changes.
Yeah, and to look back on it, so you look back on a 10-year period around that time, whew, it's like you can't hardly recognize yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I didn't because I had hair then too. No, but
it just drifted down to your chin.
Yeah, and you couldn't, to see what's happening now with like, Chickasaw TV and OCO TV, and even now the Bishonek, the Choctaws are doing television and video work and stuff like that. That's crazy to me because back then I was like the lone wolf. Amanda Clinton, who is now showing up on podcasts, and she's the executive producer of OCO and this thing like that. She used to mule me around to Cherokee Nation to different stories, and you actually did too. You were there not very long, but that was like that's how I knew her, and to now see her go ahead and create the same type of thing and see such success with it, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's like, wow, that wasn't happening before some of us came together and started doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I even remember at NAJA, Native American Journalists Association, the yearly, annual trip out there. In those first years, I was I was the only one walking around with a video camera, wanting to interview people and getting them, for television interviews. And now you go and there's people all over. And, technology helps that. We're doing Facebook Live more. We're doing, DSLR cameras, much easier to tote around and, get your stuff while not having to lug this heavy bag, big camera, do all that stuff. So things have, helped out there, but it's been really neat to see the evolution, not only, like you said, of the content and it become more of this what are we talking about now thing. Yes, we are proud of our heritage, our culture, our history, but how is it translating into modern time? What are our modern issues? What are, we're still fighting over how do we get the language to the youngsters, things like that. There's different ways to tell that story. It's being told differently, but just as effectively as it always was, just in a different way. So it's been neat to see the evolution.
That includes such a technological advance. I actually started went on what they call blue lines.
Yeah.
A sheet of paper there is marked with blue lines, and you typed out your copy on this little machine and pasted it. And then, went on to...
Like you're doing a ransom note.
You got it.
Yeah.
And then the computer came along and changed all of that. And it took me a while to get a hold of it, by the way. And then the field of radio went from cassette tapes being transferred onto reel-to-reel, where you actually edited by physically cutting the tape.
Yeah.
And,
Done it before.
Yeah.
Actually, my very first internship at a radio station, little radio station, K-Fox in Eufaula, we did reel-to-reel, and I was blown away.
Yeah, and now we got it to where we can use this little box and record what we're doing.
There you go.
Plug it into a computer, and then there it is. And
Kids these days.
Yeah, you can feel it. They think they've got it rough, huh?
They got it rough.
And then we're at a point now where, as you say, we could do live stuff on Facebook and transmit this news. I think we're seeing probably the building of a new, more stable national news organization now that will fill in where all of the others have tried and unfortunately failed.
Yeah.
So we have all of that at hand now. So does it change your responsibility, you think? Did all of that make it harder or obviously easier technologically? But,
No, very much easier. But, I mean, there were times where you had to learn new things.
Mhm.
And there's always growing pains there. And I think that when you have those new things come along, those new advances that you're working with and you're trying to integrate into your operation, you not only mess up, but those are instances where you learn what to do the next time.
Mhm.
And you, and just like I said, almost head in the sand because you're so busy that you almost don't even realize yourself improving or getting the hang of it to where it's just second nature. Whereas somebody on the outside might go, man, you really know how, you're really tech savvy. You're really able to maneuver and you get social marketing and putting things out in a way that it can be shared and seen and your content can be viewed. You know, you don't just get there overnight, but at the same time, you don't even notice that you're becoming the master of the craft, you know, and people go, man, I really got it figured out. And you're like, I'm just trying to make sure that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are chock full of stuff to be able to get and capture and put on the show on Saturday.
Do you feel like taking a phone call?
Let's take a phone call.
Okay.
It's probably somebody pranking me.
Yeah, Mvskoke Radio. Mvskoke Radio.
Are you there?
Are you there?
I am there. I am here, Gary.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
hey,
man,
Darren, you got
this
something to
guy.
say on Jason's last hurrah?
Yes, I kind of want to bring up a memory. Matter of fact,
no.
it was one of my favorite interviews. As a matter of fact, it was with, of course, the subject who's being talked about right now, Jason Salzman. But one of the things that we got to do is we got to go down there, and it was, of course, it was an interview, but it wasn't on the normal Wednesday at 10 a.m. It was I think it was like a Friday afternoon, but it was just us. It was just us two, and all of a sudden it was just him talking about him growing up, and him being in his family in a band, and it was just a family that was all consisted of the band. Everybody who played the guitar, the drums, the singers, they were all part of Jason's family. And one of the great things I liked about it was just how me and I could just rattle off a question, and right there he just took it from there. And I mean, I think throughout that whole interview, I think it was like a 30-minute interview, I think I only spoke maybe 2 times, 3 times.
Oh man, my legacy will be of the guy that talks too much.
Yeah,
Dang. Yeah.
But that's what you wanted, and especially for all of us. I mean, I was always told if you do an interview, just ask that question that just gets them to talking and just enjoy the moment.
Oh, man. And I certainly did, man. I'm glad Darren called in and let everybody know. Darren and I, we're not only we're colleagues, but we're best friends, and it's been really cool to see his progression. I mean, for me at the department, if people ask me what's your best memory you'll take away, it's like the growth. Darren's a prime example. The growth of some of my people that I've worked with and some of the family. You guys are very special to me, always will be. But to see him come on here and be able to do this radio show with you, Gary, and also his column and all the great stuff you guys do, both of your columns. It's been really awesome, and we have more. Oh my gosh, if people out there could only know the stuff we laugh about and talk about, we probably wouldn't be where we're at today.
No, we'd be looking for new
We'd be in
jobs.
trouble. But it's so fun. It makes it. You guys make it easy to come to work every day. It was never like, oh, I can't go in there. It's always like, let me go in there and see what these knuckleheads are up to, and let's see if we can't get a newspaper and TV show out and radio show this week, in spite of ourselves. So
All right.
Thanks for calling in, Darren.
No problem. Thank you,
All
guys,
right,
for
man.
letting me tell that little memory. Talk to y'all later, okay?
You bet,
All
man.
right, thanks.
Love you, brother.
See ya.
Yeah.
Love you too. See ya.
Okay, if do have a few minutes left, so anybody
Yeah.
else wants to share something, give us a call.
Yeah, call in here. Somebody else bugged me.
756-3646. What was the the show that you produced that was the most fun or made you feel the best?
Oh gosh, man. You okay? We talking about show? We talking about episode or just story itself?
Whatever.
Gosh,
Whatever.
man. Oh goodness. There's so. I think, like, if you were looking from oh man, I'm in this story. You know, wow, what a story that I find myself totally enveloped in. It may have been when I went to go get Waylon Gray out of jail in Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Flew on a little airplane, a little prop plane from
Private jet.
Okmulgee, like the Okmulgee airport. Went to Alabama to get him and back in one day. Just a whirlwind. I was basically live streaming the day. I was live, updating and everything like that. And like national news outlets were following it. It was wild. That was a crazy day, man.
Yeah, okay. Well, we seem to have another one here.
Uh-oh. I'm scared.
Hello, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, who are we talking to?
Well, I'm Jason Salzman's old history teacher, and I'm on the way
Uh-oh.
to Tulsa. And I was just listening to your excellent show on the radio, and I just wanted to say that one of the great joys that a teacher has is to watch the success of his former students. And Jason has done great in life, and I just wish him all the best.
Well,
Wow. Thank you, sir. Mr. Roger Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, one of the finest instructors in this United States, and really probably far off to places like Ireland. Maybe he would be known as such a great professor. And how you doing, old son?
I'm doing fine. I can't hear you very well.
Okay.
So I get off the line, but I just, like I say, I happened to be driving to Tulsa, and I tuned into your show, and
Wow.
keep up the good work. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir. I'll never be able to pay you back for the knowledge and everything like that, but I really, really appreciate that. I'll talk to you
Well,
soon.
thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
well,
Mr. Roger Thompson there, old Navy. Good Navy man and great history professor. I tell you what, really shaped me. Really shaped me as far as just, critical thinking, intellect, how to conduct yourself at a young age. You know what I mean? Not a lot of high school kids get an instructor like that. That kind of, this is the way, you go about your business in life, and this is the way you go about valuing things like education and being a stand-up person and things like that. And so learning that at a high school level, man, it did wonders for me to get me through my secondary education and then things in life. I still talk to Mr. Thompson on a regular basis, and we throw things at each other, ideas, and he's a good old from the old days, is a good old staunch conservative that's interested in today's political landscape, and we have good interesting conversations on those kind of things. And he's just a great man, and I was so tickled to be able to hear from him today.
now, as you prepared to produce your last program, and that was tough to say, by the way. What's going to be on it? Did you do anything special, or is it like just being able to do the routine and get the information out?
It is going to be a little special. We're going to have sort of just a sit-down, round table discussion of the way it was, as my good buddy Walter Cronkite would say. Send me the royalty check, Walter.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be fun. We're going to just basically lay back and talk about some old times. We'll probably look at some old times, much to my, that'll be fun for everybody. See me kind of, young and dumb and just not knowing really what I'm
Kind of
doing.
floundering around.
Yeah. Mr. Thompson would say that was back in my Otter days. I was Otter from the Animal House. You know what I mean? He always said I was going to be the guy that the keg came flying out the window. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's good stuff. Those are my early days.
We still have a few minutes if anyone wants to get a quick call.
Yeah, call in.
918-756-3646. As you've been through the freedom of the press wars with us, what's your recollection there, and how did you feel when the issue finally broke and we saw the light of day, and then all of a sudden that light got dimmed, and then it kind of partially brightened, and then we've got something worked out now?
Man, it's been interesting, that's for sure. I mean, I think that the initial bill passing, the Freedom of the Press bill in 2015, that was a game changer. Just everything changed at that point. We then looked to completely change who we were as far as look, and we have to, become, if we're going to be now this independent source, we need to change the look and the feel and how we do everything. So that kind of came with this rebranding and kind of pulling everything in together and really bringing in creative and seeing what they could do as far as supplementing the other parts of the department and work together on different cross-promotional, cross-marketing stuff. But that first one was like to me, it was like a career kind of spent thinking, if would it ever get to that? Would it ever become a time whenever I may have to ask some uncomfortable questions, maybe like, is this is something that's a big time different set of questions.
Well, you did. I mean, I remember shows where you did. I mean, actually, stuck your neck out. I mean, probably further than it ever has.
Yeah, I felt like a turtle there.
And put across issues that had never been discussed before, like somebody doing something a little squirrely here that they shouldn't have been doing, and now we can, I think, more, freely cover that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and people, I believe, are beginning to trust us and really turn to us as a source now.
Yeah, and that's been nice, just not for any other reason other than just the people need that. If in a day and age where there's such a distrust of the media, if we could just be if we could be the one and only reliable source, that'd be okay with me. But literally, it's been so nice to see that there isn't an agenda at all at Mvskoke Media.
No fake news.
There's no fake news. We do more. I mean, if you go and look at the paper from 2015 to whenever in November 8th, when we had the emergency session and things were repealed, if you looked in 2015 to 18, and you counted the number of what one would call a positive story and what one would say maybe, that doesn't necessarily paint the nation in the nicest light. If you went from 2015 to the positive would far outweigh the negative, because there's a lot of great things to cover, and we're not headhunting. We never have, never will. It's not about that. But when stuff does come down the pike, that could be seen as, I don't really want to air out the dirty laundry, I think that's the only way to have an informed, trusted government. An informed citizenry, and a trusted government. Those two can coexist. I think nobody's ever tried it. Nobody's ever dared or had the nerve or the courage to try that. Mm-hmm. A trusted government and an informed citizenry because of a unbiased, truthful, information-sharing press.
Right.
And there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it for us. We're not trying to be advantageous or get a lot of people to look at us. We're trying to share information to our citizens. When you look at biased media in the country, they have an agenda because they have to sell. They have to sell something. Well, our paper is free to citizens. We're funded by the government. We're not trying to sell anything or increase revenue. We did for creative and try to supplement the department.
Yes, now we are trying to supplement.
Yeah, no, but you do those things because it strengthens your independent standing, right? So, yeah.
Okay, the final question. Is there a final thought? Any word you'd like to leave with our listeners as you depart? Now, you used to be on this show.
Yeah, I did. I used to do Mvskoke Radio with Gerald Wofford. And,
were you there when it was Creek Beat?
Yeah, Creek Beat. Well, I think that was actually Nick, when Nick kind of took over.
Okay.
And then it became Creek Beat, but it was just Creek Nation radio program. And we did it. It was a lot of fun, and I had a great time. But my final thoughts would just be, Mado, I just want to thank so many people, everybody that's been on this show, everybody that's helped me, everybody that's set for an interview, which has included mayors, governors, chiefs, 3 different chiefs, Toby Keith, for crying out loud. I mean, wow, it's been awesome. But I just want to say thank you, because I couldn't have done it without every single person that helped me along the way, including yourself, Gary. So I just want to say thank you. I mean, that's all. Thank you for making this really the great honor of my life and privilege to be able to do it.
Okay, well, the last...
Now let's do our jobs and get to some news. How about that?
Let's do this. Okay, you've got a few announcements to run by the
sure
folks.
do.
Backyard Gardening Workshop, March 22nd. College of the Mvskoke Nation Administration Building, limited space available. Please RSVP. 918-549-2609.
We got a calling for graduate profiles in the Mvskoke newspaper. Will feature the high school graduates military technical school coming up, the June 1st edition of the Mvskoke Nation News. The deadline, it will be no later than Friday, May 10th at 5 to be published in the graduation edition. Need more information on that? Call 918-732-7720. Deadline, May 10th.
Tulsa Oilers hockey is back again this weekend at the BOK Center for 2 huge games against the Utah Grizzlies. The action starts on Saturday night at 7:05 on Alzheimer's Awareness Night. Fun continues on Sunday at 4:05 on Family Fun Day. Stick around after the Sunday game for a special post-game skate with the players. Buy tickets today either by phone or text at 918-632-7825 or online at TulsaOilers.com. And get ready for action-packed weekend with the Tulsa Oilers at the BOK Center.
And this month only, you can lay a finger on Gary's Butterfinger. It is National Nutrition Month. And that is, they'll be having a big event for that on Friday, March 29th, 11:30, MCN Medical Center cafeteria there in Altmulgee. You can holler at Charlene Franklin at 918-591-5784. And this is a joint venture between Creek Nation Department of Health and the American Heart Association.
Mvskoke Language Immersion Camp, June 10th through the 12th in Sequoia State Park. Please send your applications and supporting documents to the Mvskoke Language Program. Application deadline is April 12th at 5 p.m.
The Mvskoke Creek Nation Scholarship Pageant for 2019 will be coming up around festival time. They're now accepting applications, and the deadline is fast approaching, April 5th, 2019. These are for the divisions of Junior Miss and Miss Mvskoke, 14 to 17 years on Junior Miss, 17 to 24 years for Miss Mvskoke, and lots of prizes, scholarship awarded, all kinds of things. And plus, they go through a great program getting these ladies ready for the pageant. So request an application, email mcnpageant@mcn-nsn.gov or phone 918-549-2601. You can visit their website at mvskokeroyalty.com.
Okay, Wild Onion update here. Boy, I just love this. Conchardi, United Methodist Church in Altmulgee, northeast of town, on the 23rd, coming up. Adults $12, children under 10, $10. Get a hold of Brian on the Hill if you've got questions, but get there. That is good stuff. Also, Lil Casetta, United Methodist Church, all you can eat. Wild Onion Dinner, March 23rd from 11 to 3. Same kind of prices, $10 for adults, $7 for children. Karen King at 918-777-8242. Okay, take us out.
Wild Onion Dinner, too, coming up Saturday, March 23rd for the Uchi people at the Uchi House. Actually, it's for everyone, but it's from the Uchi people. So Saturday, March 23rd, 11 a.m., $10 adults, $6 for kids. Thank you, Gary, so much for everything.
Oh, my pleasure. Mado. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.